Good morning, everyone. I am Dheeraj Singh, and I am a digital evidence analyst and a cybersecurity consultant at CL4 Digital Ledger Consulting Private Limited. With CL4, I have conducted a lot of trainings and webinars in the field of cybersecurity, information security, and digital forensics to a lot of schools and colleges across India. Other than that, I have also worked with police department, and I have helped them with a couple of investigations related to computers. Today, what we are going to focus on is cybersecurity. Let's keep our children secure online. In past 10 years, there has been a huge change in technology and its usage in daily life. Nowadays, people are more habituated to gadgets than real world. Kids these days like to spend their time online instead of on playground mostly. So with the introduction of geo networks in India, the rate of internet usage has increased a lot. Obviously, internet is not a problem. It's a good thing for us. The actual problem is not knowing how to use the internet. Anyone in the world, if is trying to learn new technology, will face issues in it. Obviously, that's a fact. Internet is no different. The problem with internet is no one can control it. Just as there is good and evil in the world, there is good and evil on internet also. As a parent, your responsibility is to make sure that your kids are not affected by the evil, and also that your kids do not turn evil in future. With this goal will help you out to understand what can affect your child online and how can you protect your child from it. So this is our basic motto today. This is from our Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi. I dream of digital India where cybersecurity becomes integral part of society. So let's start with a brief introduction of cybercrime. Cybercrime actually is no different than any other traditional crime, except it involves computer and network. That's the only difference. The computer can be used both as a target or as a victim. The end result of every cybercrime is either financial loss or loss of reputation or both. So just as there are normal crimes and there are laws against it, similarly there are cyber crimes which happen on internet and there are laws of against it as well. Cyber crimes are more common in the world than traditional crime because of certain reasons. Obviously, firstly, it is quite easy to hide yourself on internet while committing a crime. Secondly, in order to steal money online, you don't need to be present at a particular location. For example, if you want to steal money from a bank, let's say Axis Bank, so you don't need to go to Axis Bank to steal money. If you're doing a cyber crime, you can sit in one different location. Let's say if you're sitting in India, you can by sitting in India you can attack US, or by sitting in one country you can attack other countries, geographical area or anywhere you can attack. So it is very difficult to catch the attacker. Now let's talk about some of the statistics on cybercrime. But before going into some of the statistics of cybercrime, let us get to know more about internet. So I have a website here which is showing live statistics related to certain facts about internet. So we are going to go to it one by one. First fact, as you can see here, is number of internet users in the world. As you can see here, it is showing 4.5 billion internet users are available in today's world. The total population of the world is around 7.2, so at least 50% of the users use internet in today's world. Next is total number of websites. As you can see, it is 1.7 billion. Let's consider it's 1.8 because it's close to 8 only. 1.8 billion websites are available. These amount of emails are sent in one day, in 24 hours, 21 billion emails. Next is Google searches. As you can see, 600 million Google searches are sent search in today 24 hours. Then blog posts, 575,000 blogs are written in 24 hours. 64 million tweets in 24 hours. 608 million videos have been viewed in 24 hours. 7 million photos have been uploaded on Instagram in 24 hours. 12 million posts on Tumblr. 2.5 billion active users on Facebook. That's a huge number. As you can see, half of the internet users have Facebook account. 832 million Google Plus active users, 361 million Twitter active users, 296 million Pinterest users, 34 million Skype calls in 24 hours. Again, this is a very important fact. 13,200, around 13,000 websites have been hacked in 24 hours only. That's a huge number, and that's a very shocking and scary fact. This is what you should be worried about. Next is computers sold in 24 hours 57,000, smartphones sold 359,000, tablets sold 35,000. Amount of data that has been generated in 24 hours is 685 million GB. That's a huge number. Electricity used for the internet in 24 hours is 352 megawatt hours, and CO2 emissions 286,000 tons. This is the amount of data. This is the statistics of internet currently. Now let's go back to our presentation. And we are going to talk about certain statistics related to cybercrime. Let's talk about the first one. First is data breaches exposed 4.1 billion records in first half of 2019. So basically data in today's world is very important asset. Criminals nowadays, they target your information rather than your account balance. You will see most of the crimes are not happening on banks. Most of the crimes happen on social media, because social media has data. Now why do criminals target data? The only answer is your information is a product for them, which can be sold in the market. Nowadays our information are sold in the market. Consider the tech giants like Google, Facebook. How are they earning? They don't sell you anything. In order to create a Gmail account, you don't need to pay any money. In order to create a Facebook account, you don't need to pay any money. In order to upload data or download files from Google, or download files from Gmail, share files, in order to share anything on Facebook, you don't need to spend any money. Then how are they earning? With that amount of population being available on internet, how are they earning? The answer is that they sell your information to the advertising companies so that you can see ads on the pages you visit. So this is why data breach is a very common cybercrime. So in today's world, the most common type of business is targeted marketing. So for example, if you want to buy a product on, let's say you want to buy a phone from Flipkart around 10,000 rupees. If you go to Flipkart or Amazon or any other shopping site and you don't find a good phone under 10,000 rupees, what you will do is obviously you will quit the shopping sites and you will leave it. You will leave it there only. Then when you go back to any other normal website, let's say you went to Facebook or you went to Google to search something, to browse some websites, or even you went to YouTube, you will see wherever you go, you will get ads related to mobile phones only, and that too mobile phones cost will be in and around 10,000 rupees. So how is this happening? How are they getting to know that you wanted to buy a phone of 10,000 rupees only? So this happens because Google, Facebook, or any other big tech giants like Flipkart or Amazon, they are selling your information to the advertising companies. Companies are getting to know, okay, you are in search for a mobile device. They are getting this information from these companies. So that's how these companies work. Now if your information, and now the point here is companies don't sell your username or your password, or whether you are a male or female, whatsoever, they don't sell these informations. What they sell is that there is a user who wants a mobile phone. That is the only information that they share with the advertising companies, and based on that information, advertising companies will show you different types of mobile phones. But consider your username, consider your Aadhaar card number, PAN card number, credit card number, account details. These are certain personal sensitive information. What will happen if a criminal gets hand to these? Like if criminal can get your information, then there comes the problem. Just like there is a normal market, there is a black market available on internet also. Your information on black market can be sold at a very high cost. Like if I consider all your information, then all your information can be sold for at least $1,000, which is a huge amount for any person in this world. So obviously people are always targeting these amount of information. Now if you have followed the news, then you would have heard that data of around 90 million Facebook accounts were compromised, and one of those accounts belonged to Mark Zuckerberg, who is the CEO of Facebook. Just think, one of those 90 million accounts can be yours as well. So your data is with the hackers. They can misuse it in a lot of ways, or they can exchange that information for money. So that's a very scary factor. Next is 53% of companies had over 1,000 sensitive files open to every employee. Companies actually are doing business, so they will have a lot of confidential information. It is important for them to protect it from the attackers. A survey showed that companies share confidential information to their employees. The more people know about it, the more vulnerable it becomes to attack. That's a big problem. If you can keep anything secret, doesn't mean that your employees can also keep the same thing secret. So it might happen that you might have shared some sensitive information with somebody else, and I might be able to manipulate that other person and get that same information that you are not telling me. So that's why the more people know about it, the more vulnerable, the more easier it becomes to attack. Next important and very scary fact: hackers attack every 39 seconds, on average of 2244 times a day. So this is a frequency of attacks, and due to this lockdown situation, this rate has almost also increased since internet usage has also increased abruptly. Next is 57% of companies experience social engineering or phishing attacks. We'll discuss what are these social engineering and phishing attacks in future, but currently let's get to this fact. You just consider that social engineering or phishing attack are very easy to be done, and it is one of the most common attacks that is available in today's world. A lot of people, they use this attack, and a lot of people becomes the target of these type of attacks. Next is 3.9 million US dollars is the average cost of data breach worldwide. So basically, if data is breached, if somebody is able to get someone's information, then this is the amount of money on an average that a company loses. $8.2 million in the US. Cybercrime stole 1.24 trillion INR in the past 12 months. That's a very scary fact. The cost of a data breach in healthcare industry was the highest at $6.5 million. So this is the amount of data, this is the amount of money that a healthcare industry has lost because the information from their computers was stolen. So these are certain statistics related to cybercrime on internet. Now let's come to the most important part, which is the common cyber attacks that can affect your child. So there are a lot of cyber attacks available. These can start from something as easy as eavesdropping to something big like cyber warfare. Let's discuss about these attacks first. There are a lot of common types of attacks available, as two of them are mentioned here: eavesdropping and cyber warfare. What is eavesdropping? It's a very simple attack. Consider that two people are chatting, two people are talking to each other, maybe on call or maybe personally sitting in the park, and there is a third person who is listening. That is called eavesdropping. On internet, this is a cybercrime. Cyber warfare is basically a type of war, open war, where you declare war between two people or two organizations or two countries, and you are just attacking their computers. Just like real war, there is a cyber war. Now, as I already told you, two more attacks, social engineering and phishing attacks. So let's discuss them one by one. Social engineering is an attack where a person will manipulate you so that you share your personal information with them. So the biggest targets to social engineering attacks are usually kids or old people or those people who are completely new to internet, or new to technology. Usually they target these type of people because obviously, since you are new to technology, you don't know what are the bad things about technology, or in most cases you don't know about how to use the technology. Let's say a mobile phone. Now obviously someone will try to fool you so that he or she will tell you that I'm going to help you to understand the technology, just I want to collect some information from you and you will have to give your information. So that's a type of social engineering attack. Phishing attack is actually also a type of social engineering attack, where basically the hacker or the attacker tries to get your username or password of any website, for example Gmail, or whether it's Facebook, or whether it's a banking website, maybe any website where you have a account. The hacker will try to get the username and password of that website so that he or she can log into your account and can do whatever he or she wants to. So similar to this, there are a lot of attacks available in this world, but we are not going to discuss about those. We are only going to discuss about those attacks that affect a child mentally. So what are those? Number 1 is cyber stalking, number 2 is cyber bullying, number 3 is identity theft, and number 4 is child pornography. These are the 4 attacks that can easily affect your child. And in these 4 attacks, the biggest targets are children, obviously. We are going to discuss them one by one. Let's start with cyber stalking. So, cyber stalking is actually the use of technology to harass an individual, group, or an organization. It usually includes false accusation, defamation, and monitoring of a person's online activity. So, this is how cyber stalking works. Unfortunately, kids don't see the real danger. Nearly 40% of kids don't bother about social media privacy. Even if your child's profile is private, his or her online friends have access to everything your child has ever posted. Cyberstalkers use actually a few tricks to harass their targets. I'm going to talk about them one by one. First trick that they usually use is to track a person's location by secretly installing a GPS device, or maybe just following them wherever they go. That is one way that they try to stalk a person. Secondly, posting an individual's personally identifying information online. So basically, they will either post your name, your Aadhaar card number or your mobile number, or some important information belonging to you. They will post it online. Thirdly, the third technique that they usually use is by hacking into someone's email or text or social media accounts, and then sending messages from those accounts to harass or blackmail you. That is one way that they will do. Fourth technique is to send threatening emails to someone or the loved ones. They will try to do that. Another technique that they usually use is releasing confidential or fake information about someone to embarrass him or her. This is another technique that they usually use. Another technique that they use is by creating fake social media profiles, incendiary websites, and malicious blogs, targeting an individual. So these are certain techniques that they usually use. Recently, we have seen various cyber stalking cases actually leading to amendments in the Information Technology Act. So the the problem was that IT Act was released in the year 2000, which deals with the cybercrime and the punishments related to cybercrime. But then there a few cases came, like there was a case related to Manish Kathuria and Vinu Priya. So in the Kathuria case, this was the first case where this was related to cyber stalking, and that's why IT Act had to change, and a new act came called IT Amendment Act, which came in 2008. So in this Kathuria case, what actually happened was that basically it involved the stalking of a woman named Ritu Kohli by Kathuria. He followed her on a chat website and abused her and used obscene languages, and then distributed her telephone number to various people. Later, he began using Kohli's identity to chat on the website called, there was a website named mirc.com. So he used to chat on that. As a result, she started receiving almost like 40 to 50 calls from different people every day, from at any point of time, maybe in morning, afternoon, even in midnight also she used to get calls. So what she did is she reported this matter to the Delhi police. Then the Delhi police took help from the cybersecurity team, and they tried to trace the address of Kathuria, and then he was obviously arrested and was put to bars under section 509 IPC. But at that time, IT Act was not there. I mean, related to cyber stalking, there was no IT Act available. So obviously, there was no record for that. Then came IT Amendment Act in 2008, and section 66A was introduced in that. So there is a saying here from Julia Hensler: no one has right to make you feel scared, harassed, etc. If you're feeling the slightest bit unsafe, connect with an internet or media savvy, trusted adult. This is the thing that every kid should do. So if you're getting these problems. Now let's come to cyberbullying. This is the most common cyber crime that happens on children. Cyberbullying is the form of bullying or harassment using electronic media. This type of cybercrime has become increasingly common for teenagers as technology is advancing. The biggest targets in cyberbullying are usually children, especially teenagers. Like there has been certain statistics, as you can see here, around 1 in 10 adolescents faced cyberbullying as surveyed in Delhi. Around 1 in 4 adolescents also reported seeing a morphed image or video of themselves. So there were certain researches by Symantec also, and it said that nearly 8 out of 10 individuals are subject to different types of cyberbullying in India. Out of these, around 63% faced online insults or abuses, and 59% were false. Out of those, 59% were false rumors and gossips, just to degrade their image. So there are different ways actually kids can be bullied online. The majority of online harassments can be actually divided into certain categories. There are different ways by which you can consider whether your kid has been bullied or not. So one of these techniques is by harassing someone. That is a type of cyberbullying, where a person uses text message or any instant messenger like Facebook or WhatsApp, and or maybe by email, to harass, threaten or embarrass the target. That is one technique. Harassment is a type of cyberbullying. Secondly, by impersonating someone. So basically what they will do is they will make a exact copy of the victim. For example, if you, let's say if your kid has a social media account, so someone will create an exact copy of the your kid's social media account by typing the same name, same details that is present on your kid's social media account, and then posting some harmful, rude or hurtful remarks while pretending to be the victim. That is called impersonating someone. So this is also a type of cyberbullying, because obviously if you are posting rude remarks, then obviously when investigation will work, or if someone is feeling insulted, that person will abuse your kid only, because the account actually looks similar to your kid's account. Third point is by using photographs, where the attacker actually they threaten to share embarrassing photos as a way of controlling or blackmailing the victim. That is another technique that they use. Fourth technique is by creating websites, blogs or polls and spreading rumors, lies or gossip about the victim on those websites. Fifth technique that they usually use is by participating in video shaming. So basically what they will do is they will create an incident and they will cause another person to become upset or emotional or feel insulted in that incident, and they will record the whole video and then they will upload it. Now internet is public and nothing can be deleted from internet. So that's why what happens is the video that is there, even if you delete from your phone or even if you are able to delete it from the official website, a lot of people have already seen that video, and maybe a lot of people have made a copy of that video and has shared on different websites as well. So it becomes very tough to delete a video completely from internet. Now usually in these cases teachers are the biggest target in this type of cyberbullying, video shaming. Next is engaging in subtweeting or vague booking. What happens here is they post tweets or Facebook posts that never mention the victim's name. So basically they will not mention the name of the victim, but they will post something which will indirectly point at the victim itself. So all the audience, the cyberbully and even the victim also will get to know, even if the victim's name is not mentioned, still everyone will get to know who they are actually targeting in that post or in that video or whatever they want to show. So these are certain types of cyberbullying that happens. Now, as I have already told you about semantic study, the same semantic study have found out that India ranks, India is the in Asia Pacific region, India is the biggest country that is suffering from cyberbullying. Other than India, the second there is Australia, and at third there is Japan. So there are certain case studies that I wanted to discuss about. First case study actually happened in November 2017. An MBBS student in Kerala actually jumped to her death from the highest floor of her college building. So after the investigation occurred, the police found out her Facebook profile, which showed her displeasure over the nasty comments that were made by one of her peers, one of her friends. Police suspected that cyberbullying provoked her to make this extreme step. A similar case happened in 2017, Feb 2017, in ABVP college, where students were attacked by Delhi Ramjas college students. At that time, also there was another case in Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi, where a 20-year-old student, there was a 20-year-old student who started a campaign against the violence that would change her life forever. So she started some campaigns. Now the student's name was Gurmehar Kaur, and after she started this campaign, she has been trolled and abused extensively on social media platforms, and she also have been receiving death and rape threats since then. So these are certain examples of the ugly state of cyberbullying in India. Sadly, each day there is another innocent life in subject to online torments and cyberbullying in India. Next is Identity theft, also known as identity fraud. It is a crime where an imposter tries to get your personal information in order to impersonate you. The motive behind it can be financial gain or perhaps a source for another crime. More than 1 million children are victims of identity fraud. Also, if you look at the record in the image that is shown here, you can see that identity fraud mostly occurs against kids of age under 8 years. 20% is against 8 to 12 years old, and the rest is on 13 to 17 years old. More than 1 million children had their identity stolen in 2017. This was a study, this was a record of Javelin Strategy and Research. The study also found that 66% of child's ID theft victims were around 8 to 10 years old. And child identity theft is a big crime in which criminals have specifically targeted children for personal data, such as their any security number like their Aadhaar card number, date of birth and name. Children are being targeted more because their information is more difficult to detect, so it's more lucrative. You could steal a child's information at birth and abuse that information for up to 18 years before the child knows he or she has been victimized. When an authorized person, just think of this, when an authorized person uses your credit card number, when an unauthorized person uses your credit card number to make an unauthorized purchase, immediately you will get a call from bank and they will detect this suspicious activity and they will try to confirm it from you whether you have done this purchase or not. But when an unauthorized person uses your child's name to get a new child's name successfully to get a credit card, either by using pre-approved credit card offer that the attacker has stolen from your mailbox, or by creating a fake identity and applying for a new credit card, it is highly unlikely that the banks will contact you if the attacker is using your child's name, because there is a relationship proof that your child, like you are the parents of the child, they can prove it. These cases are quite common as the attacker is using child's identity to get a new credit card, so it is very difficult to detect. Next is child pornography. It is a type of child sexual exploitation. Federal law actually defines child pornography as any visual depletion of sexually explicit conduct involving a minor. These activities have major effect on children. The children exploited in these images must live with the permanency, longevity, and circulation of such a record in their sexual victimization. Actually, this often creates a psychological damage to the child, including disruptions in sexual development, self-image, developing trusting relationships with others in futures. So there are certain studies that have said that 78% of images and videos analyzed by Cybertip, there is an organization Cybertip, it depicted that the children were under 12 years old. Among that same material, they have found out that 80.42% were girls and around 19% were boys. Oftentimes, victims are abused by someone they know. So, someone close to them are usually the attackers. People these children should have been able to trust. These offenders have close access to the children and they are abusing. And by using their grooming tactics, they try to normalize this sexual contact and encourage secrecy. So, one of the cases that I want to discuss about is Adams County District Attorney. Actually, they've announced on Friday that charges have been filed against 22-year-old man staying in Greencastle for allegedly uploading child pornography to Snapchat. So on further investigation, they found out there were around 450 images that were available on computer related to only child pornography. So that's a very scary news. This is one of the news that is circulating in the world. There are a lot of similar news that are related to child pornography. Now enough about the attacks. Now we are going to move on to discuss about how can you protect your kids from these type of attacks. So let's start with the first crime that we already discussed, which was cyber stalking. How to protect your child from cyber stalking. So first thing what you need to do is you need to explain to your child what kind of online behavior is unacceptable. So basically you need to explain to your child what are the good manners, etiquettes on internet. Obviously as a parent we always try to explain to our kids that what is the good behavior, what manners should we follow when we are living in the real world, when we are meeting someone, let's say when we are talking to someone elder than us, when we are talking to strangers, teachers, elders, or maybe your friends, how should we behave. The same thing we need to teach them online also, so that they behave in the same way as they behave in the real world. Second point, find out what platforms your child is using. Use YouTube Kids instead of YouTube. Basically, what you need to do is, in order to protect your child from cyber stalking, you need to keep all the adults away from your children. So the only way to keep them away is by allowing your child to visit only kid-friendly websites, using only kid-friendly apps and games. So if your child is using kid-friendly apps and websites, so there won't be any adult. So if there is no adult, nobody will be stalking your kid. We'll discuss about some kid-friendly apps and websites in future slides. Next point that I want to say is, always make sure your child is comfortable while talking to you. This is a very important point. With age, there is a communication gap that gets generated between children and parents. Try to make sure that there is no gap between of a communication between you and your children. Make sure that whenever anything happens, whether it's good, whether it's bad, your child is always coming up to you and discussing about you. So always make sure that your child is comfortable. Next point is, tell your child to never share your personal information online. Personal information here basically means Aadhaar card details, PAN card details, or any government ID details. Not just your personal information, also basically the child should not share his or her personal information. The child should not share his or her friends or family members' personal information as well to strangers. This they should not do. Last point that I want to discuss is, make sure your child's account is private. Obviously, until and unless your child is adult, smart enough to understand what are the things that are good on internet, what are the things that are bad on internet, make sure your child's every social media account is private, so that nobody will get any information about your child from internet. So these are some of the techniques that you can use to protect your child from cyber stalking. Now let's talk about the apps or social media sites that are good for your kids. First app is YouTube Kids. Instead of suggesting YouTube, we would just suggest you to use YouTube Kids, because only kid-friendly videos are available on YouTube Kids. Next app is KW. KW is Kids World. So if you want your child to get familiar with social media, we suggest not to put your child on social media sites like Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook directly. Instead, start with a kid-friendly social media platform like Kids World. It's a kid-friendly social media platform that is available. Next is Nick Jr. If your child wants to watch any entertaining cartoons, obviously kids love it. So Nick Jr. is a very good app that is available on Play Store, which can be downloaded and kids can watch it. If your kid is interested in playing games, then this is one of the games that your kid can play. Angry Birds. This is another game that your kid can play. Cut the Rope 2. Very interesting game, and it's completely kid friendly. Now if you want to discriminate between what games are good for your kids and what games are not good for your kids, there is a very simple way to differentiate the games. If you see any game which is related to war, or any game related to fight, or any game which involves blood, those type of games are not good for kids. You should always pick up those games which doesn't have any fighting scenes or any war related scenes or any bloodshed. So those games will be good for kids if there is no bloodshed in that. Next is, if you want your child to learn something new, you can always go to this website, Khan Academy Kids. So Khan Academy Kids actually looks something like this. You will just have to create an account, and obviously your kids can learn a lot of things from this website. And also Kids World looks something similar to this. There are a lot of features available. Kids can chat with each other. There are quiz shows available. There are kids friendly entertainment like games, TV shows available, which are only good for kids. So a lot of things your kids can do on this website. The kids just need to register here, and they will have to, so the kids will just have to register here, and they will just have to log in, and once logged in, they can use this website in whatever way they want. Now coming back to the presentation, let's talk a bit more. Cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is the most common attack that happens on children. So first thing that we must understand is how can we spot if your child is a victim of cyberbullying. How to spot if your child is a victim of cyberbullying? So the first point here is avoiding regular activities. If you find out that your child is neglecting his or her regular activities, let's say your child always goes to, plays between around 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., likes to play outside, and now you are saying that your kid is not going outside to play, then obviously your kid is avoiding certain regular activities. Second is mood swings. If your child is facing a lot of mood swings, then that can also be a result of cyberbullying. Third point is loss of interest. If your child is not interested in his or her hobbies or passion, let's say your child is interested in drawing, but recently you have found out that your child is not drawing anything or not painting anything, not following his or her passion, then that can also be an effect of cyberbullying. So these are possibilities that can be a result of cyberbullying. It's not confirmed. There may be certain other reasons also why your child is depressed, but if you find any of these points in your child, then what you should do is you should obviously talk to your child. Fourth point is quitting social media or quitting internet. So basically you found out that your child is not interested in using technology, or your child is not interested in visiting any website or watching videos on internet. So this can also be a result of cyberbullying. So if you find any of these traits in your kids, the first thing that you should do is obviously you should talk to your kids. Now let's find out how you can help. As a parent, you can help stop cyberbullying. The first thing, obviously, as I told, make your child comfortable and offer him some support. Secondly, praise your child for doing right thing to talk about it. If your child comes to you and talks to you about cyberbullying, if he or she is able to talk to you and tell you about that he has been bullied or he is facing certain issues, first thing you should do is you should praise your child. Third thing, let someone at school or any other place, let's say private tuitions, know about the situation, because a lot of times it happens that your child is not there with you 24/7. Your child will obviously go to schools, your child will go to private tuitions. So there are a lot of places where your child visits. Now cyberbullying can happen anywhere. It can happen in school, it can happen in tuitions as well. So as a parent, what you should do is you should inform the school authorities and as well as the tuition private tutor, so that they get to know about the situation and they can take strict actions about it. Fourth point is encourage your child not to respond to cyberbullying. This is the best way to stop cyberbullying. So basically, why does a bully target a child? Because child reacts. If I am trying to scare your child, obviously your child will get scared. But if I try to scare your child and your child doesn't get scared, then obviously I'm not going to scare your kid again. So that's the point of bullying. The bullies, they try to scare the kids, they try to harass the kids so that the kids get depressed. But if the kid ignores the bully, then the bully will not try to bully your kid again. So that is one way. Encourage your child to not respond to cyberbullying. Next point is block the bully. That's another point. Once, just as you see that a bully, there is a cyber bully who is trying to bully your kid, the first thing that you should do is take screenshots, take proofs that this cyber bully has tried to bully you, and then just block the bully. Next is limit access to online technologies. Just keep a control on how much time your kids are spending online and what are the websites they are visiting. You should limit that. Last is know your kids online world. You should know which social media platforms does your child use and what are the things that they do on those social media, what are the information that they are sharing. So these are the ways by which you can help stop cyberbullying. Now how can you protect your child from identity theft? Obviously pay close attention to people who have your child's personal information. You must know who in this world have your child's personal information. For example, if I talk about Aadhaar card details, who except you, who has your kid's Aadhaar card details available? You must pay close attention to them. You must find out that your kid's information is safe with them. You must know where have you stored these amount of information, because lot of people, what they do is they store information in digital world. They store it on Google Drive, or they store it on different website. So you must know which websites have stored your kids information. Second, again, limit child's usage to technology. This is another way. Third, teach your child safe internet use. You must tell them what are the how to use internet safely. What are the websites that they should visit? What are the websites that they should not? What are the information that they can share online, and what are the information that they should not share online? These are certain things that you need to teach your child. So those are the ways by which you can protect your kids from being attacked online. Now let's come to cybersecurity, which is a protection of computers or other electronic media from theft of computer hardware, software or data, as well as disruption of devices or misdirection of services provided. So basically we try in cybersecurity, what we do is we try to protect all the electronic devices and the internet from all types of cyber crime or cyber attacks. It is one of the trending domains to explore. It is a Now there is this myth that people think that cybersecurity is only the responsibility of police or responsibility of the government, but it is not. Actually, it is a collective responsibility of every individual to protect your data. If I talk about your Facebook profile, protecting your information that is available on Facebook is actually the responsibility of the company, but it is also your responsibility to protect your user ID and password. Because obviously if company is protecting your user ID and password, and if you are sharing your user ID and password to criminals, then the company is not responsible for that. So it is the responsibility of all of us to protect our information. It's not just the responsibility of the defense or the government or the companies. So these are certain tips that we would like to suggest if you want to protect your data. First thing is, always keep your software updated. Always update your software, even whether it's a computer software, whether it's a mobile app, you should always keep them updated, because usually what happens is in older versions of those softwares there are certain bugs, there are certain errors, there are certain issues related to security that has been found, and when the developer of the software finds out these issues, he tries to modify the software so that the software becomes more secure. After modifying the software, he creates an update. If you don't download that update, your software will always be the older one which has all the issues, and your software can be attacked. Secondly, always use antivirus and firewall. These are always available in computers. You should always keep your antivirus on so that your computer or mobile phone is not affected by any type of virus. And if I talk about firewall, always keep your firewall on so that no hacker can enter your system without your permission. So basically antivirus protects you from malicious softwares, harmful softwares, and firewall indirectly protects you from hackers. Third thing, use a strong password. Whichever website you visit, whatever website asks you to register on their website, you should always create a strong password. A strong password is around 13 character password, and it should have letters, numbers and symbols. Always use strong passwords. Fourth point is use two-factor authentication. This is a new type of security that has been added to most of the websites like Gmail, Facebook and WhatsApp, where you can add 2FA. Actually in banks by default they use 2FA. Whenever you do any transaction in bank, what you need to do is you will have to type your account number, then you will have to type your PIN, then an OTP is sent to your registered mobile number, you will have to type your OTP, and then you can do the transaction. So similar concept has been added to these social media sites also. If I talk about Gmail, if you don't turn on 2FA, what happens is you just need to enter your Gmail ID, you just need to enter your password, and you can log into Gmail. Now the problem is, if somehow someone gets to know your password, the person will be able to log into your Gmail. But if you have 2FA enabled, and even if at that point of time the attacker knows your password, that person won't be able to enter your Gmail. How? In 2FA what happens is you need to enter your Gmail ID first, then you need to enter your password. Once you successfully enter your password, an OTP will be sent to a registered mobile number. You will have to type that OTP and then you can log in. So that's an extra layer of security that has been added. Now if I talk about hacker, if hacker knows your password, the hacker will type your Gmail ID, hacker will type your password, then hacker will have to type the OTP. But the OTP is sent to your registered mobile number, And obviously you are not going to share your OTP with anyone. This is another important fact. Never share your OTP with anyone, not even bank professionals, not even from the company itself. They never call to ask for OTP, so you should never share that. Fifth point is protect your PII. PII is basically personal identifiable information. You should always protect your information that is available online, whether it's your Aadhaar card details, PAN card details, or bank account details. You should always know where have you stored these type of information, and you should always get to see whether the security is available there or not. Sixth point is backup your data. If you have important files and folders inside your computer or mobile phone, the best part is to always keep a backup. Let's say, for example, in my mobile phone, the most important things will be my contact list and my messages. That's the most important information that is available in my mobile phone. Now let's say somehow a malware or a virus enters my mobile phone and destroys everything. If I don't have a backup, I won't be able to recover anything. All my data will be lost. But just think, if I create a copy of my contact list, a copy of my messages on my Google account, then even if a virus enters my computer or mobile phone and destroys everything, what I will do is I will delete that virus somehow, and I will recover all the data. Basically, I will download the data that I have already saved on my Google account, and I will download it from there, and I will get back my contacts and messages in the same in the original form. So that is what backup is. It usually works if a software or if a hacker is able to attack your system and has tried to steal your data or has tried to destroy your data. At that point of time, backup is very important, because at that point of time, backup will help you to recover all the data that you have lost. Seventh point is don't use public Wi-Fi. This is a actual reason behind not using public Wi-Fi is that the point here, public. It is public, so basically it's free for everyone. It is free for good people also, it is free for bad people also. And the bad people, they know how to fool other people, they know how to conduct the cyber crime. So obviously if you are on public Wi-Fi, if there is a hacker around you, the hacker will be able to see what are the information that you are sharing online, because that's a public Wi-Fi. He also can connect to that Wi-Fi and he can see your information. So even if you are trying to use public Wi-Fi, my better suggestion is never ever visit any website which requires to enter login information. For example, Facebook or Gmail or your bank. You should never do online transactions using public Wi-Fi. If you just want to browse, if you just want to watch YouTube videos, if you just want to get entertained online, then you can obviously use public Wi-Fi, because people don't get affected if somebody gets to know you what are the videos that you're watching on YouTube. But if you're trying to log into some page, or if you're trying to do a transaction online, never use a public Wi-Fi, because public Wi-Fi's can be hacked easily. So that was all about cybersecurity. Now we are going to discuss a few FAQs. First point, first question that usually comes from the audience is, how can we block websites so that the kids do not get access to it? So basically this technique is called parental control, where a parent is able to monitor the activity of the child. So I'll just show you a simple technique of blocking websites so that your kids do not go to unauthorized websites. So for this, what you need to do is, in every mobile phone, in every computer, usually people use Google Chrome. So I am going to use Google Chrome to show this simple demonstration of blocking websites. So if you have a Google Chrome browser, whether it's phone or laptop, this is related to laptop only. If you talk about phone, then you'll have to download an app. Apps are also available on App Store. You can use any app available, but I'm going to show on laptop. The same technique can be applied on Google on phones also, but in that case you will have to download an app. So first thing what you need to do is you need to search an app that can block sites on Chrome. So what I have searched on Google is block sites Chrome. So once I searched it, I got a lot of websites here. So if you want to block sites on a laptop, then you click on the first link, which is chrome.google.com. and if you are using a mobile phone and you want to know about any of the app that is available online that can block sites, so you can see the second link here. The second link is good, is a good app which can help you block sites. Now since I am on laptop, I am going to click on the first link. Once I go to the first link, actually I have already downloaded this software in my computer, so it will show me another option. But anyways, once you open this website, you will get something like this, and here as you can see, it's written, for me it's written remove from Chrome, but for you it will be written add to Chrome, or maybe it will be written install. So you just need to click on this button and the file will be installed. Once the file when you click on this button, you will get another drop down menu here. They will ask you, I'll just show you, just a second. Let me just remove it from Chrome and I'll show you to how to install it again. Okay, so let me just, so when you visit this website, you will see something like this, add to Chrome. So once you click on it, you will get a drop down menu something like this. There you'll have to click on add extension, and you'll just have to wait for a while so that it gets installed. As you can see, it's written here checking. So it's checking whether this software has already been added to Chrome or not, and it is also checking whether your Chrome is up to date or not. So it's checking, and now it is starting to download the file, as you can see at the bottom left corner of the screen. So it has downloaded. Once it is downloaded, it will automatically get installed, and you will see this page here. So obviously you will have to agree to the policies that they have generated. Now you will get a page something like this. First thing that you should check is that this is green colored, because it is, since if it is green, then that means block site is on right now, but if it is red, that means block site is off. So if you find that block site is off, just click on this button and it will turn to green. So now block site is on. Now what you need to do, what I am going to do is I am going to block a website, snapdeal.com. Let's try with snapdeal.com. So first I am opening snapdeal.com. As you can see, the Snapdeal has opened. Now if you want your kids to not visit snapdeal.com, what you need to do is, here you can see an address, you can see a text box here. You need to write www, and you will have to write the name of the website and like this, and you need to press enter. So once I do this, you can see that the name is written here. Now if I try to open snapdeal.com, www.snapdeal.com, so as you can see here, it is not allowing me to open snapdeal.com. No matter how hard I try, I won't be able to open snapdeal.com. So this is the way by which you can block a website. Now if you want to unblock it again, what you need to do is you need to come back to this page, and you will have to click on this minus icon, and it will be removed. Now you can open it again, as you can see here. Now how will you get this page every time? What you need to do is you need to close this page. If you want to get that page every time, on the top right corner you will see this icon here, which is related to block site. You will just have to click on this, and you will have to come to this bottom, and you will see a word written here, block sites. You will just have to click on this. Now you will have to click on edit block list. Once you click on that, you will be redirected to this page where you can add your own website. In this way you can create a block site. Now coming back to the FAQs, another usually frequently asked question is there a way to monitor a kid's social media activity? So basically monitoring someone's activity comes under hacking, or it's a type of attack. But if you want to monitor kids' social media activity legally, what you need to do is you need to find out which social media platforms does your kid use, and then you yourself will have to create an account on that social media platform, and you will have to be a friend of your kid on that platform. Now whatever posts or likes or shares your kid does online, you will be able to see that. That is the only legal way to monitor your kid's social media activity. Now if your kid is comfortable enough to share his or her user ID and password, then that's another way to monitor social media activity. But usually in today's world, kids, they don't share their personal information, not even with their parents. So the only way to monitor kids social media activity is by creating a social media account on every social media platform that your kid uses, and be a friend with your kid. So that's the only way. So this is all about cybersecurity and the activities, cybersecurity, and how can you protect your children from being secure. Thank you.